So today we're going to be going over my top 5 wedges going into the 2023 season to hopefully give you a better idea of what might work best for you out on the course. Now there are still a few of these that I haven't been able to try out myself, but I have done some pretty extensive research beforehand, so I still have a pretty good idea of where these wedges fall on my list. Alright, and with that, number 5 is going to be the Ping Glide 4.0 wedge. Now this is one of those that I haven't been able to try out myself, but I know My Golf Spy did pretty extensive testing on this wedge, and they found that it was one of the best wedges out there for retaining spin in wet conditions. And whether you're out on the course in the mornings when it's really dewy, or even late in the day, there is still some moisture that is held in grass. So having a wedge like the Ping Glide 4.0 could benefit just about everyone, and especially if you're looking to get more backspin from your wedges. From a look standpoint, I think it looks pretty decent, pretty standard. It definitely has that classic Ping styling to it. And overall, if you can get more spin from your wedges, that's a plus in my book. At number 4, I'm going to put the Mizuno S23 wedge. Initially, I thought this wedge looked kind of strange, almost like their JPX line, but carried over into a wedge. And maybe that's what it is. But I think the way they designed it is actually kind of clever. With all of that weight being distributed to the outside perimeter of the club head, it does actually help with that accuracy and forgiveness aspect of misstriking a wedge. I found that to be the case when I was testing it out. The spin rates are pretty good, and it is actually a rather soft feeling wedge. Now I tested out the Cobra model, which looks fantastic by the way, and there was a noticeable difference in how soft it felt coming off the face. Now with wedges in general, there's not going to be too much difference in dispersion, distance, or maybe even design. So props to Mizuno for stepping out of the norm with their design a little bit in both color and just styling. And overall, I think it's a pretty good wedge. So for that reason, it's at number 4. All right, moving on to number 3 on the list, we have the TaylorMade MG3 wedge. I've always found the design of the TaylorMade MG wedges to look pretty good. I know the raw face on the front is not really for me. Just being someone that really likes things to look clean and stay nice and shiny, a raw face doesn't quite do it for me, but that's all entirely personal preference. The performance behind the ball was great, just like everything else on this list so far. Nice dispersion, great spin rates, especially out of deep rough and wet conditions. The head did feel just a little bit heavier than everything else I had tested up to that point, but I don't think most people will really notice that when playing. And I do also really like the finish options that come with the TaylorMade MG3 wedge. Alright, and coming in at number 2 on the list is the Cleveland RTX 6 wedges. I think they nailed the design this year. From the RTX Zip Core last year, they had that Zip Core bar kind of up towards the top. And I think they had a good idea with that. But I think it took too much mass away from the base of the head, and I actually used the Zip Core wedges all of last year, but I found them to be almost a little clickier whenever I would strike the ball. Not that that's a bad thing, I just like to hear a little bit more of that soft, muted sound when I make contact. I also really appreciate the milling all across the face. I think that's just a fun, both functional and performance addition to the face of a club. It allows you to stand out a little bit more, and like I said, the back of the club head looks really clean. I have actually put the RTX 6 wedges in my bag for this year. I think they just look really good, and they feel great, and that's why they're going in at number 2. And finally, the number 1 wedge on the list for 2023, I think is no surprise to anyone, is the Voki SM9 wedge. There is a reason that so many tour pros play this wedge. It's just well built, clean, consistent. My only gripe is the fact that it doesn't ever seem to change at all from the previous iteration as far as design. But if you've got something that works and looks good, why change it, right? As important as the short game is in golf, you want as much consistency as you can find, and Voki does that fantastically. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this list or how you would rank it differently. Let me know down below as well. What wedges are you going to be playing this year? What are you putting in your bag, or what do you have your eye on? And if you found this video helpful at all, subscribe down below while you're there. Thanks for watching, and don't miss my next video, which will be the top 5 putters for 2023.